Hello and welcome to this Consulting Specifying Engineer video conversation. I'm your host, Amara Rosgis, and today I'm speaking with Brian Renner from Smith Group. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good, Amara. How are you?
Good,
Pleasure to be
good.
here.
Thank you. Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about Brian. Brian Renner is the National Director of Mission Critical Facilities and Senior Principal at Smith Group in Chicago. Brian has extensive experience as a manager, director, and engineering leader in the design of numerous types of facilities, and he has a passion for data centers and science and technology facilities, like those that focus on artificial intelligence. He's a long-time member of IEEE, serving in various committees in the Chicago chapter. Public service roles include more than 10 years as a city councilman in his hometown of Lake Bluff, Illinois, and he chairs the town's sustainability committee. He's a longtime member of the Consulting Specifying Engineer Editorial Advisory Board, and he's been contributing multiple articles and presentations for the brand. So, Brian, you have seen and done a lot in the past several years. Um, let's narrow it down. In the past 10 years, say, what's the biggest change you've seen in the MEP engineering industry?
Well, I think it's been even more stricter energy codes. When I started out as a young engineer, the controls, the requirements for energy compliance were very minimal, and it's only increased over the years to become more and more sophisticated. And this also has grown to include the sustainability initiatives, LEED standards, various energy modeling codes, and carbon reductions is big these days among our clients. This really requires a lot of specialization in energy modeling tools and integration with other disciplines when you're designing a building from the beginning to achieve those sustainability goals and those energy goals really requires working with the mechanical engineers, working with the architects, of course, but even working with structural and civil and putting it all together as a complete team to achieve those goals. So it's really been a growth area. The other thing that kind of goes hand in hand, if I can speak to my electrical background, electrical hat, is that the electrical professionals are being asked to electrify buildings and campuses. To meet that carbon reduction, we're getting rid of natural gas and other fuels to typically provide heating for both water and air side mechanical systems. So this requires electrical engineers to really understand heavier power demands, heavier power systems. There's more of a focus on having more electrical systems in the building, which we'll talk about later in some of the best design practices, but also more on-site power. Our grid is being strained by the need for all of this important backup power and the development of microgrids and on-site sustainable energy sources such as solar. So
Okay,
it's
so it
really
sounds like,
these areas. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like it's happening across the industry, not just electrical discipline. Is that right?
Yes, it's really across all disciplines, but I think electrical's really kind of vaulted to the forefront with regards to the electrification, and it requires a lot more heavier power systems than maybe younger engineers back in my day used to be familiar with. If you design a typical building, you might have an 800, 1200 amp panel, very simple. But when you're having to electrify a whole building and replace all of that energy that was supplied maybe by natural gas or other sources with electric heat, the electric systems are really growing in this country, not to mention the areas I'm specializing in, which is mission critical data centers, science and technology. Those facilities are consuming a tremendous amount of power. And in fact, with the growth of AI, we're looking at upwards that the country's 25% of the country's power in the near term future may be dedicated to data centers, AI, and high performance computing. Those are significant demands for data power and infrastructure to support data.
That is a lot. And you touched on this a little bit, younger engineers, people entering the field. What do you think junior level engineers should consider as they're just starting their career, or do you have any advice?
Well, I wouldn't, I would definitely try, there are different markets, right? There's science and technology, there's data centers, higher education, healthcare, corporate workspaces. There's also all sorts of areas that you can work in, and Smith Group does all these fields. It's a great firm to work at, but I think don't specialize right away. Get a chance to work on different types of facilities, find out where your passion is, find out what you find interesting, but never stop your education and training. This is one of the things that it was a lesson for me as I came out of school. There are architectural engineering programs now. So a lot of engineers come out understanding how to put a building together. I came from a general purpose Big Ten electrical engineering degree. So I had a lot of different areas that didn't necessarily apply to buildings. And so I had to really apply myself to learn how to design electrical systems for buildings. In fact, when I was in college, I didn't even know what the National Electrical Code was. So I threw myself into continuous education. First of all, as a young engineer, mid-level engineer, take advantage of your company's internal training. Most companies try to have older engineers and mid-level engineers help younger engineers grow by doing lunchtime in-house seminars, providing white papers. That's one way you should definitely learn from all those programs. Even sit in mechanical engineering seminars, architectural seminars that your company's doing in-house. You get to learn how those other disciplines work. Second is you need to understand that you're the CEO of your own career, of your brand, of your self-development. You cannot always rely on your company to do everything for you, and they want to see you be self-motivated. So as a CEO of your own company, if there are programs outside your company that maybe are not supported as a young engineer, you should go ahead and invest in yourself. Join the IEEE, join ASHRAE, join local committees in your town or area that have training and dinners and luncheon seminars that you can go to. If you need to take additional courses, nighttime courses or online courses in various electrical, mechanical topics, you should do that after hours. You really have to grow your skills and make yourself beneficial and of value to your company and to other companies and clients as well.
So in addition to all those technical skills, how does a junior level person get soft skills or business skills, or how do they develop their career with those skills?
Yeah, that's another important part. And we'll talk about where you can go with your career. But as a consulting engineer, and that's the audience we're primarily talking to here today, but for all engineers in any companies, communication, speaking and writing skills are so important. You need to work on those. One of the things that my company does is that we have an internal group that supports Toastmasters, which is a program that helps people develop their communication and interrelational skills, social skills, and be comfortable with speaking. Okay, because as an engineer, you have to deal with clients, you have to deal with code officials, you may have to do presentations to city councils like the one I work on in Lake Bluff about what your client is doing and speaking as an expert. And so those kind of skills are really important to work on. Engineers may not have the greatest communication or writing skills. They're very technically oriented. But those are some of the things that you need to do. In addition, you know, in terms of management skills, there's going to be a project manager on almost all your projects, or project engineer, or project architect. There's also going to be a departmental manager and various levels of management. Listen to those people, see if they can provide mentoring for you and what's important to your company and to your client in terms of management skills. It may be financial, understand how the company works, how billing rates work. Those are things you can all do while you're doing your job. Just pick up those things on the side. Those are going to help you also figure out where you can advance in your company and what is of interest to you and of value to your career in terms of advancing where you want to go.
Okay, so you're an engineer. Now you have the job. How should an engineer continue professional development once they start working?
Okay. So again, I don't think this is a decision you have to make very early in your career, maybe after a couple of years, but particularly after you get your PE exam passed and your licensing on board. I think there are a couple different paths. You can obviously continue as a technical specialist. Okay. You can develop to be the best energy compliance engineer, best power engineer uh, in your field, and just really become a technical leader. In this way, it's mainly just your technical skills. You're publishing, you're presenting, you're being known as an expert in your field. But then there's a branch of that into management. You can become a departmental manager, managing the electrical department, managing the mechanical department, a discipline leader. And then you have to bring in those people skills, those soft skills, and learning how to motivate other engineers, how to help them develop along their career path. You could also be a project manager. This is kind of branching you off into managing not only electrical engineers, but also mechanical and perhaps even architects. One of the great things about working in certain technical fields, such as science and technology or data centers or semiconductor facilities, is there are opportunities for engineers to become project managers instead of just architects, which are traditional in this industry. So that's another way you can advance in your career is along the project management. And then that kind of can get you into market leader management, which is what I do. I run an entire market in mission critical or departments or entire departments or sectors within your company. So don't think that as an engineer, you can't advance to a point where you're managing other engineers and other disciplines or architects and engineers as a whole. There's a lot of opportunities, but spend those first couple of years learning from the people in those roles in your company, seeing what drives them, seeing what might be your interest, but also understand your career path may take some turns. You may be a project manager for a few years and say, this was great. I want to go back to running technical, being the electrical discipline leader. And I did that in my own career. I had times where I did electrical engineering, then I did project management, then I did discipline leadership, and now I'm in a market leader position. All of those things are things that you don't have to necessarily stay in if you're in the right company. You can try and wear different hats.
Okay, so you just kind of broke some of this down, but what types of career paths are available? I mean, you're moving up, you're advancing into leadership. What are those specific options?
So first off, after a couple of years, I think you should decide what market you want to be in. Oh, I love higher education. I love healthcare and hospitals and medical research. I love science and technology. I love data science. I love museums and cultural. I love developing corporate workspaces, headquarters, those types of things. You should pick, eventually after a couple of years, you should decide what field you want to specialize in. So that's the first step, okay? What am I going to be known as an expert in? After that, you have to decide, really, do I want to be a technical guy or woman, or do I want to be a manager of people? Okay, and that helps to define where you're going to go next in your career.
That makes perfect sense. And when you are building that career, like what opportunities have you used specifically to boost your company's name or make projects more prominent?
So all those paths we talked about, technical expert, technical leader, department leader, market specialist, all of those things you can help promote your company, first off, by being a positive member of your community outside the company. I'm involved in my local community. I think that reflects on the company I work for, who takes an interest in things outside of its company, in various professional societies, volunteer activities. You need to be a good citizen, and that helps you represent your company. The second thing is getting out there involved in technical committees, in leadership roles. You might get involved in a local chapter, as I did, of IEEE, and serve in various roles, helping develop your profession. You can also then get into publishing and presenting, which is something I did. If there's a particular area that you're, say, power systems or healthcare, you can start developing articles and publications. And the best way to do that is to partner with someone who's already an experienced published author. You can become a co-author, which Amara knows I've done with numerous engineers in my career, having them develop parts of the article and get their name out there that way, and eventually being the sole author on their work.
Right. So lots of different ways to approach it, and a lot of really good ways to invest your time outside of your specific profession.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's think about conferences and events. Like I know you mentioned IEEE, but is there one particular conference or event that really stands out for you?
Well, again, it depends on your path in your career. When you're a younger engineer, whether it's IEEE, ASHRAE, there may be here in Chicago, we have something called the Electric Association, which is an outstanding electrical and group that meets locally to have technical training and conferences. So when I was younger, I was really focused on electrical engineering, power engineering, and the technical aspects of going to conferences. As I've and I also want to mention too, circling back to being the CEO of your own career development. Occasionally, you're going to be at points, companies have limited funding to support conferences, professional societies. You have to make a decision that if your company says, I'm sorry, we've only got so much budget allocated for training, you go to that conference, take a day off work. I know it's difficult, pay your own way into the conference. If that's what you need to do to develop yourself, it's an investment in your career. As I've grown, obviously in the market segments I've been in, I've wanted to go to conferences dedicated to data centers, dedicated to science and technology type development projects. And as you go to each one of these conferences, and there are many of them for every field, like healthcare probably has a dozen of them, data centers have a dozen, you'll find the one that suits your field specifically. Like in data centers, my group primarily specializes in high performance, artificial intelligence, and high density, hyperdense type projects rather than enterprise, although we do some enterprise. So those are the conferences that I'm going to, the kind of leading edge computing, the water cooled computing. So in terms of the conferences, though, I think initially it was the IEEE local in my city. It was the ones I could afford to go to, that I had the time as I was raising a family to just go to a dinner once a month in the evenings and attend those. But there's also a lot online these days. And, CSE Magazine does wonderful presentations where you can interact with these live, real time, ask questions of the speakers. So there are ways to do this online these days too. You don't necessarily have to go out to conferences, but interacting with people, I think, is important to those soft skills too that we talked about. Getting out and meeting with vendors. And that's another thing. Some of these conferences have large vendor components to them where you can go from vendor to vendor to vendor. And that's something we didn't talk about too. I think that a lot of young engineers can be hesitant, or some companies can be hesitant to get too intertwined with certain vendors because we have to be objective. We have to specify products that are ethically appropriate. But I think you should develop a good relationship with your primary vendors. They're the ones that have all the latest information. They're also, from time to time, offering chances for you to go to the factory. They may cover those costs of travel for you to see how the products are made. And that's a great way to get that additional training and see the products and understand them.
Yeah, most definitely. So, kind of to wrap this up, you've talked about a lot of things here, but what are some best practices specific to electrical design?
I'm going to speak specifically to electrical because that's where my strength in design is. Understand that the National Electrical Code is the bare minimum. It is not necessarily good practice or best practice. They're concerned with maximizing safety, minimizing incidents of injury, of making sure that the systems function. But it's okay to consider going beyond the National Electrical Code. I'll give an example. I've done a number of papers and presentations to CSE Magazine on electrical spaces, electrical rooms. Okay. The amount of space around equipment, the National Electrical Code has minimum clearances. Honestly, you should be beyond those. And you should be on those to make the life of the operators, the maintenance people, getting equipment in and out of the building. There's all sorts of best practices for creating spaces and around electrical equipment. Another example is selective coordination. Okay. In certain types of facilities, healthcare, critical facilities, you have to have a selectively coordinated system. But you also have to consider that certain types of businesses may want to be selectively coordinated to avoid downtime, right? So you want to make sure that you design electrical systems in a way that avoid outages, that avoid unnecessary interruptions, that you've talked with your client and understand what their expectations are. And that goes back to how to communicate to your clients. What are the best practices? Ask them what their problems are. What are they trying to solve with this project? What are their concerns? What are the lessons learned that they've had on their other projects? Listen carefully as you ask those questions and digest it, and then explain back to them, this is what I think you want me to do. I want to do this, this, and this, and then add in, I think it would also help you to do this, this, and this to achieve your goals. So that kind of best practices involves understanding your client, but also bringing solutions to them. Don't always ask them, well, how do you want me to design this, right? The best practice is for you to listen to their concerns in a general manner, what they want, and then present to them opportunities and costs to improve the electrical systems, not just design to the minimum standard. They may have minimum standards. They may tell you to use the National Electrical Code, but that there's an opportunity for you to do better.
Right, which then in turn improves business overall. So
Yes.
perfect. Awesome. Well, excellent. And thank you, Brian. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you so much, Amara. It's a pleasure.
Great. Well, that was Brian Renner with Smith Group. And thank you for joining me. I will see you next time at the next consulting specifying engineer video discussion. Bye bye.